This is exactly how to manage retainer projects within Monday.com like a professional. I'm going to walk you through how to set up projects, how to set up tasks, and how to manage recurring tasks on a weekly, monthly, whatever quarterly basis. By the way, if you need any help setting up Monday.com for your business, check out the link below. Anyway, as you can see here, I'm in our example Monday.com system. So the first thing that we're going to want to do to manage our projects, and then we're going to have our tasks, and then we need to consider how we manage the recurring tasks for our projects for our retainer clients. We kind of need two different boards, and then we need some automations to be set up. Now, I'm going to quickly run through firstly the boards that we would use. So we need two boards. This is called a high level, low level board setup. The top board is going to be called our projects board. So we're literally just creating a standard board here. Call it projects. The privacy options are entirely up to you, whether you want it main, private to just yourself and select others, or shareable externally. And then you can select what you're managing in this project. This is just a terminology thing, but I would select projects in this particular instance here. So I would create our projects board. Now, I'm going to keep it really simple in this particular video. If you want to learn more about how to set up a detailed or more sophisticated, shall we say, project setup within Monday.com, then I'll link a video above. Watch it after this video. I'll put it in the description, whatever. And it will show you a more comprehensive system setup. But I'm just going to blast through the absolute basics of project management here. So we'd have probably new projects as an example for our different groupings. We'll probably have active projects. We would probably have completed projects. And then we'll probably have cancelled projects as well, which would be here as cancelled / postponed potentially, as some projects do get pushed back. So this is kind of like our standardized grouping for our projects. New projects come in from the sales CRM, whether you're using CRM system externally or one inside of Monday.com. That then automatically creates a new project record inside of your Monday.com system on your projects board, being this board here. So we've got our new projects. Just going to change this to the dark gray there. And then what we'll do is we'll edit the default label to be new. So by definition, all new projects that are created inside of this particular board have the default status label of new as well. And then once they go from new, they would go, obviously once they come in, someone gets assigned to the project, then they would transfer over to active. So we just need that to reflect as our status option here as well. So I'll just change this to active, and then we would obviously have completed, which will be in green. So I'm just going to change the grouping color in a moment. And then we've got cancelled / postponed. There we go. So I'm just going to reposition accordingly, put active there, change that to a nice little purple. We can delete this particular label. New active, cancel / postpone. I'll just move that completed up a little bit. And then we can change this here to our green, and then just change this one to our red. So that's kind of our standard project process. Now I'm just going to hide the column summary. What I would often do is automate when status changes to active, move item to group active. Same for completed, same for cancel / postponed, and obviously same for new as well. So just anytime the status changes, it moves to the respective group, as opposed to having to literally like completed and then drag it down here. This is just basic stuff. You can do that in the automation center in the top right hand corner here. It shouldn't take too long to set up. Again, if you're not sure how to do that, check out the video I mentioned earlier. It's a more detailed video. It's a lot longer, probably an hour in length. Sorry to put you off, but yeah, I'll just do that instead. And then we've got a few other columns that you might choose to add. You've got date created, which is a date column. Let's say this one here. So we've got date created, created, hit enter. What I would typically do in this instance is restrict the column editing for this particular column, and then I'd just say every time a new item is created inside of this particular board, an automation runs to set the date created day to today. That allows me to see how many projects are created on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis by the date as well. So you've got then date created. So you could then see, if I looked at a report, how many projects were created in March versus August versus September, blah, 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 blah. So that's quite helpful. The other thing that I would often do is add another date column, and this is date completed. Okay. So the reason we would do this is this marks when a project has been formally completed. And what triggers that is when the status changes to completed. So the automation that I would run in this particular instance is when status changes to completed, set date column date completed to today. So then I can see the amount of time on average between the date created, date completed, how many days a particular project stands. This is especially useful for you if you manage primarily retainer projects, because then you can see the average amount of time in days or weeks or months, whatever you want to look at, that a project will be active. So let's assume, and I'm just going to get out my trusty calculator here. Let's assume that you charge $5,000 per month as a retainer. Okay. And then you've got 5 active projects, but because you are tracking the time difference between when they start and when they finish, and then you can get an average between the two across all of your different projects, you can say, so it's 25,000, but you can say that on average they stay for, I don't know, however many weeks or however many months, 7 months, for example. So then you know your average lifetime value of a customer, or project value, shall we say, because they might come back in the future, take a few months off, come back. But let's say 7 times 5,000. So that means the average lifetime value of a customer for you is $35,000 across all of your projects so far. So date created, date completed. The way you want to do this is just add a formula column here. So you go add a formula, and then you want to use the AI assistant. It's the easiest way of doing things. And then just type in, give me the difference between date created and date completed. Hit enter. There we go. So then it will just give you what I would call the TTC, which is time to close. So set formula. And then if I set this, so this is date created 1st of August. If I set this to, let's say, the 7th, it gives me 6 days. I can then hide the column summary, which is the bottom part. I would restrict the column editing as well. And then also what I would do is just change the name to TTC. Now, what you might look to do, I'm not actually sure if this is going to be possible or not. I think it probably will be. So we just go months as opposed to days. Yeah. And then just set formula, see what this does. It doesn't like it, unrecognized function. It might just be month. There we go. Set formula, so 8. That doesn't sound right. Let's just stick with days. Let's try it on the AI assistant. Give me the difference between date created and date completed in months. So how many months difference between the two? This would be obviously more useful. Let's see what this comes back at. Oh my, that's an interesting one. So that says 0. If I change this to the 1st, yeah, this is probably more useful if you want to manage like client lifetime value, retainers, stuff like that, if you're primarily focusing on retainers. The reason being, I say that they've stayed for a month. I can then add, let's say, a numbers column and just say, let's say, monthly retainer. And then I can say that it's 5,000 as an example. Hide the column summary, and then what I'll do is customize the numbers column, put the $sign here, just stick this on the inside of all of this. And then what I could probably do is I'll just change this to show column summary, and then I can change this to an average. Obviously you can report on this information as well, because you're only going to get the averages per each group, but you can create a dashboard outside of this video to manage the average time a project stands, or how long a retainer lasts. But what I've just done there is obviously added a numbers column to track your monthly retainer as well. The other stuff that you probably want to do, well, this is quite important for your retainer, is you'd want to have a date start date. So a created date and a start date might be slightly different. You could potentially go off the date created. So you say every month or every week after the date created, then create these tasks on this board and connect those tasks to the projects board. So that's option number 1. Alternatively, you could just have a separate date column, which is like the technical start date as opposed to the date created, because they might come over from the CRM system, date created, but someone might not get over to this particular project for a week, or I don't know, something like that, hypothetically. But then it is more information that you need to fill out. So pros and cons here. I'm just going to put date started just to be super clear here. Now, the reason we want this date started option is because we're going to use automations to automatically create tasks based on the date started date. Okay. One other thing to bear in mind is you might have another status column, which is, let's say, your retainer type. So retainer type. So if you've got different types of retainers, or I don't know what the different packages, I suppose, what I'm trying to say. So if you've got super expensive package, expensive expensive package, and then you might have affordable package, and then you might have cheap package. I don't know. I wouldn't use these naming conventions for your marketing. Well, the expensive package name might work well, but the others definitely won't. So I'll get rid of those. You can see here we've then got our different options. Now, the reason we'll have this as well is the tasks may vary dependent on the retainer type. So I suspect there'll be more tasks for the expensive package as opposed to less tasks for the cheap package, so on and so forth. So now you've got your basic understanding of projects. Again, I'm going to re-emphasize, if you want to learn more about the standard project setup, check out the link in the video below after this video. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create another board. So we press the plus button, call it tasks in this particular instance. Privacy options, again, entirely up to you. Select the tasks option here and then just hit create board. So our tasks board is where we manage all of the tasks for all of our different retainers. They're all grouped in one place. It's a high level, low level, or technically a high level, medium level, low level board setup. And I'll come on to what that means in a moment. But this is exactly how we're going to do it. So we've got to do tasks as group one. We'll have doing tasks, and then we'll have completed tasks as well. And hit enter. Make that green. We'll make this the dark gray, and then doing, that's absolutely fine. Again, we can just set up the status columns to match. So to do, doing, and then we'd have completed. Okay, again, it's entirely up to you how you want to format this. This is just kind of a suggestion. If you want to do it slightly differently, be my guest, you're more than welcome to. Just select that purple option there. So now you can see we've got the status column matching the groupings. Again, what I would typically do in this situation is automate. I'm not going to waste too much time doing that in this video. Again, the other thing that I would do is date created, and then I would do date completed, which is another date column. And then I would obviously have so dates completed, have that, and then I would also say, let's say, formula column time to close difference between date created and date completed. Just in this instance, probably just days as opposed to months. It's a difference between date created and date completed. Hit enter, and then that will give me my formula there. Just press insert and then set formula. Set this as TTC, or call this TTC, and then I'll just hide the column summary. So this is just, again, basic stuff. Just going to hit refresh here, prevent some glitches. So now we've got a tasks board. We've then got our projects board. Now what we would want to happen is automatically every single week, month, quarter, whatever, it creates tasks on the tasks board for that particular project, dependent on both the status and also depending on the retainer type, and then maybe even the quarter as well. So I'm just going to show you how to set that up. So we've got our tasks board. Hopefully you get the idea of how this can be managed. Obviously you've got sub items as well if you want to go into detail on that, but I don't think that's particularly important. You might want to add additional columns on here where necessary. Let's say like a numbers column, you might have like a task type. So like an accounts related task versus a marketing related task versus a media buyer related task versus a developer related task. So you could just use a status column to delineate the task type, which you can set in the automations. So now let's get to the crux of the video. Dragged it out long enough. I'm just gonna have a drink. It's not wine, I promise. I wish it was. So we'll then head over to automate in the top right hand corner here. And what we want to do is go to manage and then press create automation. Okay. So now what we want to do is we just want to create our recurring task process. So I'm just going to walk you through how that would work. So what you want to do is search for at the trigger point when date arrives. Okay. So when date arrives, and we're going to select date started because that's going to be our trigger. We're not using date created. I've already explained the reasons why. So we say when, and then what we want to do is select the option underneath, and then we can say 1 days, or we can select weeks, or we can say months. Okay. And this is quite important. So obviously if it's a monthly recurring group of tasks that you need to do for a particular client, you would say 1 months, and then after date arrives at 7:45. Okay. And then what we can do is we want to say, and only if status is equal to status being active, because we do not want to obviously have completed projects creating tasks on our tasks board. And then we also can go ahead and filter further by saying, and only if status is equal to and retainer type is equal to our expensive package. Okay. So we've got 1 month after date started arrives, and only if status is active, and only if retainer type is expensive package, then create item in board, okay, and connect boards. That's a good point. I have not created the connection part. So let's just revert back momentarily. I'm just going to close this down. That's hopefully giving you an insight. There's a lot more to this. We need to create a connection between projects and tasks. Okay. So we're just going to go ahead and press the plus button, search for connect boards. And then we're going to connect between our projects and our tasks, create a two-way connection. So just make sure you select this option here. The reason being is then all of our tasks can connect to our project. So if I just put this here and then head over to our tasks board. Oh, I can't believe I forgot this. Amateur hour, absolute amateur hour. So just be project singular. So imagine that this is a task, this one here. So task, there we go. And then this task is in relation to item 1, which is actually, well, we've put item 2 here. So let's just say item 2 is project important as an example, right? So then you can see the tasks relating to a particular project. I'll just put this wherever, whatever. Let's just put this there. What we can also do, just before I completely forget everything today, is we can add a column to the right. And this can be a mirror column, and we can mirror over the status of all of our tasks onto the project. So if I just go status as an example, so task, this would be called task status. You can then see that we've got one task that's in status doing. However, if I also connect item 2 to project important, you can then see that on the projects board, we've got 50% done and 50% is in doing. Okay. What you can also do is mirror the other way. So if there's key information on the projects board that I want to see on the tasks board, you can mirror it the other way. So if you want to, let's say, mirror, and you might have like a project folder that's linked on the projects board, you can then mirror it the other way. So let's just say monthly retainer, we mirror over. Whether you need that sort of information or not, that's up to you. But you can see here that you've then got that available to you. So that's obviously project, monthly retainer, whatever, connections sorted. Going back to our automations on the projects board to create our recurring tasks, we're just going to do the same again. So every, date arrives, wasn't it? Date arrives, when date started, and then we say 1 month after date arrives, and then we're going to say, and only if status is something, and only if status is equal to active, and also, and only if status is equal to expensive package, then we can create item on board and connect boards. So we create the item on the board being the tasks board, the item being the task. Okay, so this is just going to be example task number 1. And then I'll delete all of this other stuff here as we're not going to need it. So this is data that's being mapped from the project to the task. It doesn't make sense in this particular instance. And then we use the connection column projects to tasks. And then we can go ahead and do this over and over and over again. Okay, so create item in tasks, and then we can do the same thing. So create item in board, and so we go tasks, item being example task number 2. So example task number 2, and then we can get rid of the person, we can get rid of the status, and then the date created and date completed can also go. And then we'll connect the projects with the tasks column, create automation. So now only 1 month after, you can see 1 month after start date arrives, and only if status is active, and only if retainer type is expensive package, then we create these tasks. Now, what you're going to notice is this only applies, okay, unfortunately, only applies 1 month after the start date. So what we would need to do is we would need to duplicate this for as many months as a retainer may stay. This is the easiest way of doing it. There is another way of doing it. I'm probably not going to walk you through it as it is a little bit more complicated in this video. But you can duplicate this and say all you would need to do if the tasks are going to be the same, just change it to 2 months and then press create automation. It's really not that difficult. And then again, we would go duplicate And then we would change this to 3 months after, okay, and then hit create automation. So this is saying that 1 month after the date started, we create these same tasks, 2 months after and 3 months after, and we can just go on and on and on and on and on. You can have this obviously for as long as you like. What you can naturally factor in is the average amount of time that people stay, and then you could just do the maximum version of that. So you don't have to go crazy with automations. Obviously, if you want to automate till the cows come home, you're more than welcome to. Now, other people might also do quarterly. So what we can do in that particular instance is 3 dotted button, and then we can hit duplicate. And then what we can do is, as opposed to the months, we can change it to weeks. And we just say every 12 weeks, okay? So 12, 4, 8, 12, quarter, right? I think. No, it is. 12 weeks after the date started, arrives, and only if status is active, then create items on the tasks board and connect it with the project, okay? So you can see how we've now got both monthly and quarterly. Obviously, if you want to add additional ones as well, you're more than welcome to. You can then also duplicate this and change the retainer type to a cheaper package and then create the tasks for your cheaper package. But now everything is based on this date started, 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 12 weeks after. It will create items on the task board, automatically connect the task back to the project as well. So as opposed to having to manually do it, it will automatically do it. And then you'll be able to come to your projects board, see the exact status of all of those tasks every single month, etc, etc, etc. Now, when it comes to assigning people, what you can do is go to automate again, and we'll just click into this and click into, let's say, this example one. You can assign a person if you want to, so that would map over from the project. So whoever's responsible for the project also gets the task. You can set a status if you also have like let's just say a task type. You would have to write it in, but let's just say this is for finance, and then you can go ahead and set up automations that says when a task is created, and if the task type is equal to finance, then assign it to this group of people. Now, I would not recommend, and here's why, let me explain. I would not recommend assigning tasks to people, okay? What I would suggest doing is assigning tasks to teams. The reason being, and I've seen this time and time again, people unfortunately do come and go from businesses, right? They leave, they get new jobs, whatever. When that happens, it means that you will have to manually update every single automation that that particular person has been assigned to. So if you've created an automation that says when thingy happens, then assign this to Dave, for example, and Dave leaves, but that automation's got like 40 different things in it. Someone's got to not only remember to do that, which is a challenge in of itself, but also they've then got to spend the time to go ahead and update it. So I'd strongly recommend using the Teams function within Monday.com. If you've not used it, just have a look. You essentially create a team, then add people to the team, then assign the team responsible for the project as opposed to the person, and then you can add and remove people from the team as and when people come and go from the business, or if they stay or leave, whatever. So that's what I'd recommend doing. But in a nutshell, that is how to manage, or this is how I would personally manage retainer projects within Monday.com with the relevant recurring tasks. There's obviously a bit more nuance to this, but hopefully this gives you a good idea of what's possible. You're more than welcome to test this out. If you've got questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section. And if you would like us to help you set up Monday.com for your business, check out the link below. We would love to help. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.